The chime of the bell beckons us to sacred time. Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Houston and to our annual Water Communion. I am Carol Burris, and I am honored to be your Director of Religious Community. We are a congregation that welcomes you, no matter who you love, no matter how you like to practice spirituality, because we know we need not think alike to love alike. We are a congregation that extends a heartfelt and inclusive invitation to join us in meaningful worship, in personal and spiritual growth, and in service to the world. We welcome each of you, those of you who are here in person, and those of you who are joining us online via live stream, and all who are searching for a spiritual home. This morning, our service is multi-generational, which means those of all ages in our community, as we do a handful of times each year, will experience worship together. We won't sing the children on their way today. We do not have religious education groups meeting this morning, but we do have nursery staff available if that would work better for your little one. We begin our service by raising our voices in song with hymn number 126, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. Please rise in body or in spirit.
We gather this morning, both virtually and in person, to start our liturgical year. We gather to say welcome, to tell each other and that all of us have a place in this congregation and in this world. We gather to say that the immigrant and the undocumented, the refugee, are welcome here. We gather to say that whatever you believe, whether you are Muslim, Hindu, Jewish, Christian, atheist, Buddhist, pagan, humanist, or something else, you are welcome here. We gather to say that whether you are gay or straight, man or woman, transgender or gender fluid, you are welcome here. We gather in this community, and we proclaim that all are welcome, and that love is more powerful than hate, and that there is hope for justice, and that it is good to be together. Come, friends, let us worship together. The mingling of the waters ceremony is common in many of our Unitarian Universalist congregations. Traditionally, the service serves two purposes. First, it reminds us that no matter where we've been for the summer months, it is time to come back together as a community. The second is to help us recall that we are all ultimately dependent. No matter where we go, we must have water. Without it, we will die. We need community and love too. If we lack those, we'll wither just as surely as if we have no water. Today, the water service serves an additional purpose. The water we share reminds us that wherever each of us are, we are all connected to each other. Whether you are participating in the service online or here present with us in the sanctuary, we are part of a single community, the human family. The water we share belongs to no one. It cycles through the entire world, rain falling to earth, penetrating ground, and evaporating skyward again. Some of the water in the sanctuary may eventually cycle its way back to those of you at home. The water in your homes might someday find its way here to First Church. Everything is connected, and no one is ever truly alone. Water makes life possible. More precious than gold, more precious than oil, water encompasses the world. When our water becomes polluted, our bodies become polluted when we drink it. Our connection to water should remind us that we are part of, dependent upon, this planet and not somehow separate from it. In this era of climate catastrophe and global warming, we must remember our connection to and dependence upon this muddy, wet, blue ball of a planet we call Earth. It is the only home we have. It's the only place we yet know in this entire seemingly infinite universe of stars and nebula, ice and planet that will sustain human life. This year, for our water communion, we invite you to meditate upon the question, how does the water you brought sustain you? In your order of your service, you'll find a piece of paper with raindrops, a reminder of the vast cycle of which we are a part. I invite you to write your response to the question, how does the water you've brought sustain you? There'll be 3 minutes of silence for you to reflect on the question. And then ushers will collect your raindrops, your responses during the offering. If you're at home and wish to participate, you can also email us at info@firstuu.org. We'll read representative selections of your responses later in the service.
Our special music selection this morning is a beautiful song of inclusion and welcoming. We were planning to have our sanctuary choir sing it for you this morning. However, just in the past couple of days, the Unitarian Universalist Association came out with some new guidelines concerning worship during this current spike of the Delta variant, warning against perhaps choirs singing at this time. So we're just going to postpone our choir a little bit more, and Teru and I will present the same song in perhaps a smaller way, but we hope you enjoy this beautiful piece of welcoming. For everyone born, a place at the table. For everyone born, clean water and bread. A shelter, a space, a safe place for growing. For everyone born, a star overhead. And love will be known when we are creators of justice and joy, compassion and peace. Yes, love will be known when we are creators of justice, justice and joy. For young and for old, a place at the table, a voice to be heard, a part in the song. The hands of a child in hands that are wrinkled. For young and for old, the right to belong. And love will be known when we are creators of justice and joy, compassion and peace. Yes, love will be known when we are creators of justice, justice and joy. For gay and for straight, a place at the table, a covenant shared, a welcoming place, a rainbow of race and color and gender. For gay and for straight, the chalice of grace. And love will be known when we are creators of justice and joy, compassion and peace. Yes, love will be known when we are creators of justice, justice and joy. Justice and joy, justice and joy, justice and joy, justice and joy.
Good morning. We're going to get moving in a minute. I'm going to invite you to stand up to do a special song we do in Closing Circle with the children. And it has a lot of wonderful UU values. It's called Standing Like a Tree. And it goes like this. Standing like a tree with my roots dug down, my branches wide and open. Come down the rain, come down the sun, come down the fruit to a heart that is open. to be standing like a tree. Please rise in spirit or in body and join me with singing this song. Standing like a tree with my roots stuck down, my branches wide and open. Come down the rain, come down the sun, come down the fruit to a heart that is open to be standing like a tree with my roots stuck down, my branches wide and open. Come down the rain, come down the sun, come down the fruit to a heart that is open to be standing like a tree with my roots stuck down, my branches wide and open. Come down. Come down the fruit to a heart that is open to be standing like a tree. Please be seated.
Tomorrow, hundreds of thousands of children from across Houston will return to school. The last week, many others have returned to private schools and regional school districts. Many of those who are homeschooled are likewise beginning a new period of renewed academic activity. And so today we bless the children and youth from our community at the start of the school year. I invite parents and children present to stand as they are willing and able, but stay in your pews. While you do so, Carol will come around and hand you a bookmark with our Unitarian Universalist principles. And if you're at home, we'll be sending you a bookmark in the mail. Parents, whether you're at home or here, I invite you to place a hand upon your child. And if your child has a backpack with them, you may likewise place a hand on their backpack. This is a very difficult time for parents, this time of physical distancing and education and pandemic, and it can be very hard to support yourselves and your children. You might feel alone or overwhelmed or powerless. Your hands on your children are a reminder that you are their support and their caregivers during this difficult time. I extend my hand to you and invite the congregation to make a similar gesture as a reminder that this congregation here is here for you and all of our families during this challenging time. We Unitarian Universalists believe that we create community so that we can take care of each other, and we are called to do so more than ever. Children and youth, those of you starting your studies and those of you for whom they have already commenced, I extend my hand and this blessing. Even when you are away from First Houston, you carry the heart of Unitarian Universalism with you. May you feel curiosity all of your days. May your imagination catch fire. May you find courage when it is necessary. May your confusion lead to better questions. May you find compassion towards those around you and they towards you. May you feel heard and seen. May you hear and see others. May you speak up for those who are not heard, who are not seen. As your spirit's home, are made stronger when you share what you have learned. And we invite you to bring what you learn in the world back to us. And now, members of the congregation, we ask that you, extending your hands as you do, share your love and blessings as the children head on to their school journeys. I invite you to offer your support to them now by saying, "We will." We will. Please be seated. And today is an intergenerational service, and I invite our children at this time to color their bookmarks. There are crayons and colored pencils in the pews, as well as a few additional small pieces of paper. Our service is about what water and what water connects us to. And so you're invited to think about water as you color. And adults, of course, are invited to color too. Please join me in the spirit that some name prayer and others call meditation. Open yourself to the mysteries and wonders of the world. Open yourself to compassion and empathy. Take one breath. Take another. Center yourself. This Sunday morning, like so many Sunday mornings in these times, seem replete with news of the horrors that we humans do to each other. The resumption of Taliban rule in Afghanistan, the awful scenes from the airport in Kabul, the growing refugee crisis, the need for people to find new homes in strange lands is all so upsetting. The governor's assault on mask mandates, the legislature's assault on democracy, the resurgence of the pandemic with the rise of the Delta variant. These are difficult times. Times so difficult that I am tempted to leave the news of the world outside of our doors because it feels so heavy. In spite of this heaviness, I offer you a prayer for the power of community and the possibility of healing. While all might seem dire, let us recall that human life is filled with acts of compassion and empathy, large and small. I can extend my hand to yours. You can extend your hand to mine. Together we can be a little stronger, a little more powerful, a little more capable of facing the difficulties of the hour. My prayer this Sunday, then, is simple. It is that by extending our hands to each other, we can help humanity awaken to the larger truth, that we are each connected to all, each part of this beautiful planet, each dependent upon clean air and clean water, the great global commons. May this truth stir in the hearts of the powerful, but more importantly, may it stir in the hearts of all the peoples of the planet. For it is the masses of us, and not the rich and mighty, who will ultimately decide our human fate. If we can remember that we are united as a human family with all of the other species of this planet, that it might be so, I invite you to say, Amen. We pause now together to lift up that which sits heavy and light upon us. We lift up Rosita Kirkman, who is in memory care. We lift up Marianne Cheslock, who is recovering from a shoulder surgery. I invite you now to speak or bring to mind the names of those you wish to be held in the loving embrace of this community. In this great cloud of witness and memory, amid this beloved community, we hear these names and hold them in our hearts. Let us remember the suffering and joy amid and among our community that we do not know. We pause now in awe and wonder of the beauty, diversity, and mystery that is life. In our loud and busy lives, we do not pause often enough, and so even a brief silence can feel long-lasting. Let us be thankful for this cease in cacophony, and in the spirit of love, in the spirit of hope, and in the spirit of compassion, enter into a time of silent prayer, meditation, or reflection.
Each week, our morning offering is shared with an organization that shares our Unitarian Universalist values. This week, that organization is TOP, the Texas Organizing Project. The mission of the Texas Organizing Project is to bring together Black and Latino Texans so that together they can fight for real change by organizing their neighborhoods, investing their time and energy in causes relevant to their communities, and collectively taking ownership of TOP's agenda, strategy, and direction. With a seasoned and committed organizing staff, a diverse membership, and leaders from all walks of life, TOP has already made a huge impact and is positioned to continue to grow. Those in our sanctuary will find the instructions for text giving in the order of service. And those watching the live stream will see the instruction on their screen. Our regular Sunday morning offering collection invites us to weave a tapestry of love and action. We ask you to give generously. Our offering will now be gratefully received.
I invite you to say the words to dedicate our offering found in your order of service. To the work of this church, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives, and these are offerings.
Our next hymn can be found in the purple hymnal. This is our Spanish language hymnal, Las Voces del Camino. We will be singing number 31, Fuente de Amor. Many of us will be familiar with this as Spirit of Life, but this morning we have the opportunity to sing it in Spanish. And we'll add in one more language, as after we sing in Spanish, Carol Burrows will lead us in sign language. So we'll invite you to participate in that way as well. Please rise in body or in spirit.
Oh
Thank you, Mark and Carol, for that beautiful rendition of Spirit of Life. This helps reminds me of how good it is to be with you who are in the sanctuary today and spending this time together. This is the second year in a row now that our annual in-gathering service is taking place under some rather unusual circumstances. Last year, our service took place entirely online. This year, some of us have gathered in person, and others are participating with us via the live stream. This year, like last year, as the pandemic has unfolded, we've had to adapt and adjust our service as best we can to respond to the situation while retaining its core rituals. All of this has required a certain willingness to consistently reimagine what our worship looks like and the structure of our liturgy, the set of things we're doing in the service. Concerns about the transmission of the Delta variant led Mark to make the significant decision yesterday to change our gathering. As he told you earlier, today was supposed to be the start of the choir season. The first in-person choir performance in over a year and a half was going to be a joyous occasion for certain. It would have been a marker that things had returned to something like what they were in the before times. And now we're having to adapt again, which is not exactly the easiest task. The service takes planning, of course, and changing plans on short notice can be difficult. And here I think we should lift up Mark's skills and flexibility in leading us in our service. I'm truly appreciative of that. However, the primary difficulty is not actually the difficulty that changing the service presents to the staff. It's difficult because of the nature of worship itself. Worship is an activity filled with ceremony and infused with meaning. Much of what we do on Sunday morning is intended to connect us to something greater than ourselves while deepening our connections to each other. The repeated patterns, the weekly activities of worship, the items that form our liturgy are designed to offer you a certain sense of familiarity and comfort. We do so in order to provide you with a place where you feel welcomed and secure in a certain kind of stability. Through the things we do together, the lighting and extinguishing of the chalice, the singing of hymns, the dedication of the offering, the ongoing conversations that is our sermons, we want to communicate to you that no matter the difficulties of the hour, the challenges of our lives, there will be an institution and a community here for us throughout everything. It's been the principal reason why, over the course of the pandemic, the staff, the board, and I have done what we can to ensure that First Houston offers some form of worship each and every week. And that form of worship has at least some semblance to the services we had during the before times. Nonetheless, we've had to adjust almost constantly. First, we had to learn how to do services completely online. Then we returned to in-person services with the hopes that the majority of our community would be gathering with us in the sanctuary and we would be able to resume many of our regular activities, such as choir performances and, should I say it, the beloved coffee hour, that have been so critical for our community. Now we find ourselves trying to provide a meaningful worship experience for a congregation where more than half of you are joining us online, while the other portion of you, half of you, sit in the pews wearing masks and keeping your physical distance. Instead of complaining, am I complaining or just describing what's happening? Anyways, under the difficult circumstances of the pandemic, it's sometimes difficult to know. But instead of complaining, I should be celebrating the fact that our Unitarian Universalist tradition allows us and encourages us to consistently reimagine the nature of our life together. There are no prescribed actions that we Unitarian Universalists must include in each and every worship service. We can have a service without a sermon, without music, even without a chalice. For us, worship is always about what best serves the needs of the community and how we can best respond to the crises and blessings of the hour. This approach to worship comes directly from our Unitarian Universalist theology. Exactly a century ago, the Universalist minister L.B. Fisher wrote, Universalists are often asked where they stand. The only true answer to give to such a question is that they do not stand at all. We move. The movement can be detected in the flexible approach we generally take to organizing services. I say generally because one of the markers of the religious pluralism found within Unitarian Universalism is the fact that while we here in Houston feel somewhat free to shift the elements of our service, there are some of our congregations in New England that have kept the same liturgy since at least the Revolutionary War. Those handful of congregations aside, and actually I should say that if you're ever in Boston, King's Chapel is well worth the visit. The minister still wears Sunday morning Puritan preaching garb. Anyways, those handful of congregations aside, the flexibility found within our services is directly connected to the changing contours of Unitarian Universalism and religious life. Today's service is actually an excellent example of that very dynamic. Ingathering and the water communion are two important events in our congregation. Typically, they mark a significant shift in our life together. Travelers return from summer travels. The children's religious education program takes on a more organized form. The choir starts. There are more people in the pews than there have been through July and August. The energy and excitement are palpable, and we celebrate seeing friends we have not seen in some months. The importance of these events can make it seem like they've been central to Unitarian Universalism for as long as we've had congregations. Yet, water communion is actually a relatively recent addition to our religious life. King's Chapel does not celebrate it. I'm not even certain how long First Houston has been observing it. Digging through our archives this week, the only reference I was able to find to the water communion was one from about a dozen years ago, though I'm certain you've been celebrating it much longer than that. My best guess is that the service came to First Houston in the 1980s, or maybe sometime in the early 1990s. It was a part of an effort to transform Unitarian Universalism led by women. As the feminist movement and feminist theology gained strength both inside and outside Unitarian Universalism, in the 70s there was an effort to push aside what Lucille Shuck named the male-dominated hierarchy sanctioned by Judeo-Christian theology and replace it with something that could serve the spiritual needs of all people. I say all people, but Shuck and the women who worked with her in this effort were particularly interested in reimagining Unitarian Universalism so that it met their needs as women. They were deeply critical of the humanism then dominant within our congregations. Shuck wrote that all humanism did was push aside a male God, rather than offering a radical theological innovation, as its proponents claimed. All it did was move the human male up from the top step of the divinely ordered ladder to the platform beside God, and then succeeded in pushing the Great Father aside and enthroning himself. At a 1980 feminist convocation in my hometown of East Lansing, Michigan, Shuck and Carolyn McDade, whose hymn, The Spirit of Life, we both just heard in 3 languages, proposed an approach to creating a more feminist Unitarian Universalism. It focused on liturgical innovation and reimagining what we did when we gathered together. Rather than having services that always lifted up the sermon as the most important point, they created services that were products of the entire community. The water communion was born. Its intention, they said, in the first water communion was to give shape to a new spirituality. The service was in many ways like ours. Participants brought waters that connected them to something greater than themselves and mingled the waters together in a bowl to represent their coming together as a community. In the service, McDade and Shuck challenged what the patriarchal Unitarian Universalism of their day, and in 1980, the Unitarian Universalism, like all other religions, could have been described as patriarchal. Most ministers were men, and the UUA didn't have a woman as a president until 2017. Anyway, they sought to challenge the patriarchy of the UUA at that day by calling women to strength rather than to support of others, to action rather than to passivity, in the work of creating and recreating the rituals and symbols that give meaning to us. They chose water as our symbol of our empowerment. For them, water was directly related to the cycles of their lives. As rivers and cycles release their waters and regain new beginnings, they wrote, so do we cycle. The ritual was so deeply meaningful for many of those gathered there that they brought it back to their home congregations. The congregation I grew up in began celebrating it the very next year, perhaps because it was in East Lansing after all. And I have fond childhood memories of the water communion service in our old sanctuary. Other congregations took longer to adopt it, and a few, like King's Chapel, never did. Wherever it came into use, it was reimagined. Congregations discarded the emphasis on the experience of cisgendered women for a theology that they imagined was more inclusive. Water came to symbolize our connection to and dependence on this muddy blue-green ball of a planet and the cycles of life. The service often focused on the stories of those gathered there. In recent years, it has frequently proved an opportunity to reflect on the climate crisis and what must be done and what is not being done to avert it. I tell this story less to offer a particular interpretation of the water communion and more of a way to introduce our theme for worship this year, and a task that we have before us as a religious community and indeed as human beings right now. The pandemic, the climate crisis, the resurgence in white supremacy with both its racist and patriarchal dimensions, the assault on democracy, these times call for us to reimagine what it means to be Unitarian Universalists, to be a religious community, and indeed even be human beings. The story of the water communion should remind us that this act of reimagining is not new. It's something that we Unitarian Universalists have long done, and now, whether we're gathering in person or online, or some mixture of both, are called to do again. And so I close my homily with just a simple invitation. I invite you to engage in this act of reimagining with me and with the whole congregation. Let us reimagine together. That it might be so, I invite you at home and here in the sanctuary to say Amen.
Us to the earth. Yes, you're first.
The water I bring today is not my own. It is both the water gathered from our first service and the water from last year and all the preceding year's services. The water connects our community to its history. It is a reminder of the gifts that have been given in the past so that we may have a present together. The water has come from across town and even from across the world, but it has remained in this community. We've used it in child dedications, and where did my page go? We have used it in child dedications and at memorial services to represent our gathered community. By pouring it in a moment, I will invoke all of those who have come before us and the collective experiences, wisdom, and joy that make this congregation sacred.
Connects us to the earth. We are water, and water is us. The rivers, the streams that flow across the planet's surface, in some sense, flow in our veins as well. all life on this planet is entwined.
We invite you to listen to the words of this congregation about how water sustains us. I invite forward the water from members of our congregation so that it can be mingled with the congregational water. This water is from both those gathered here and those who are participating online, who have brought their water to us over the course of the week. Our mingled water is a symbol of how we are connected and united as a beloved community.
Water from my apartment, a place that I've spent the last 2.5 months carefully making my safe haven, exactly what I need to heal.
It reminds me that my body is one changing wave in an ancient ocean.
Water from U Bar U, a UU youth summer camp, replenishes my faith in youth community and the greater UU world.
This water from a mountain waterfall sustains a nurturing memory of refreshing, rejuvenating power of cleansing when we return to our source.
Waters gathered from the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans remind me of the bonds between and among my family and friends and how they have helped me sustain myself over the past 18 months.
The water we brought was given to us by a member of the Changing Women's Group when we had no water during the freeze. It sustains me because there was always help and hope and support even in a crisis.
This water reminds me that my community cares about my family. This water was given to us by a first UU member during the freeze in February 2021.
This water sustains an internal buoyancy.
This water represents the joy of walking with friends among the trees lining the Blue River in Colorado.
Water is life. Our bodies are water. Water is a necessary part of life. My water is blessed and will be shared with loved ones. It sustains me by providing protection, health, and well-being.
Colorado waters near my 82-year-old mother sustains her land and life, mine too by association. The hot springs from the Compagre River, Cascade Falls, paddleboard, shared experiences on or around water with family in July 2021.
Soothing, cooling, birth, life, and love.
Swimming in cool, fresh water nourishes my body and my soul. Water I drink feels cool and refreshing to both my mind and my body. This results in giving me courage and the grace to lead on a life of purpose and be a force for good in my everyday journey through life. Water washes away my imperfect thoughts, giving me fresh start each day.
I brought the water in my drinking vessel, which nourishes my body, the rivers of my veins.
Water from Lake Jenny, the most pristine water I have ever encountered. I view Lake Jenny in my mind like meditation.
Water is our essence. When we are hot and dehydrated in this brutal Houston heat, it cools and replenishes us, becomes us. If it is clean, water satisfies like nothing else.
Water from a place on Cod River where anyone could hop in and float for a while. There were a few rapids, and we sat watching the different groups of friends and family floating and splashing together. The memory of this gathering, smiling and laughing in a cool, refreshing place, sustains me when I'm feeling discouraged by more limits on gatherings with loved ones.
Our water is from the Gulf of Mexico, taken at Crystal Beach, which we visited on a mini vacation in July. May the Gulf Stream continue miraculously moderating temperature in our North Atlantic ancestral homes.
Water flowing from Clear Creek from the Rocky Mountains provides a cool, refreshing swim.
I live in a historic city built in 1831 on a bluff overlooking the Trinity River. From the riverbanks, I am looking west toward Houston, toward you. Using Google Maps, I can align myself directly toward you, as if toward Mecca, exactly 42.576 miles south-southwest. I wish that I could add this cup of water collected from the Trinity to the collection pool today. Due to COVID precautions, I cannot, but this Unitarian's Trinity River water and self is no less with you in spirit during today's water communion.
It nourishes the plants in my garden, which feed the critters in the garden, all of which feeds my senses, my heart, and my soul.
It refreshes and renews.
And finally, water from Lake Ojibwa, Michigan, made by tectonic plates separating 1 billion years ago, vast as a small sea. I visited every day when I volunteered at Greenrise nearby this summer. Water calms and sustains me.
I offer you now words from Tess Baumberger. May we have the wisdom of water, that life will have its falls, sometimes like a mountain stream tumbling over round stones, sometimes like threads of rain spun from clouds, sometimes in breath-taking cascades. May we have the wisdom of water, that each fall is finite, each ends in contact with the earth. May we remember that we in this community are as earth to each other. We cushion each other's falls, lessening the impact, supporting one another through hard times. We are the ground of blessed community. May we have the wisdom of water, that we will rise again after each fall, sometimes like mist breathed through neighborhood trees, sometimes like a geyser shouting from the earth, sometimes as imperceptibly as evaporation from the sea. This water, now collected, will be boiled, strained, purified, and put back in its jar. We will use it throughout the year as we dedicate children, when we have a memorial service or a wedding. The water will represent us, the gathered community, and our collective experiences, joys, and wisdom, and even sorrows. And so now I offer a prayer for the water, a prayer of dedication. Unnamed and unknown source of all existence, which some of us call God and some think of as the laws of the universe, we wish to know the wisdom of water. We hope to learn to bend and flow down mountains, up from springs. We would be soft like rain, ever renewing life around us. May we have the wisdom of water. Water carries us, like our community, as we drift through life, when we hit rapids or when we are at peace. Water has blessed us, has given us life. It sustains us. We know that each drop of rain, each rivulet is sacred, just as every member of our community is sacred. We are thankful for the water of our community, for the water of life, and for the water that runs through our veins. In times of crisis and hope, we hope that we remember that like a drop of rain, we are always part of something greater than ourselves, and we are never alone. I invite the congregation to say amen.
Our closing song can be found in the Teal Songbook. This is number 1007, There's a River Flowing in My Soul. Please rise in body or in spirit.
Please find the words printed in the order of service to extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
We leave this place with these words from the poet Uvenot. The great sea has set me in motion, set me adrift, moving me like a weed in a river. The sky and the strong wind have moved the spirit inside me, till I am carried away, trembling with joy. Let us travel the river of life together and tremble likewise. Amen, and blessed be.